comic review time. I don't know why I keep calling it that. Like, the way I said it was just sounding weird. And I think, already starting with the and I think that he had a streak going where it was 2 videos, then complete comic haul for that month. But I think this month's gonna be 3 videos, because I'm not doing weekly uploads anymore. There's most, and it's more just official, like confirmed weekly uploads. Like sometimes I'll go a week without. Now I'll go a week without uploading. Where like last year at this time, that would be like the worst thing imaginable. There's the third in not even a minute, but because honestly, we haven't even done November, December, January, February, and honestly, it'll be March at this point. Image books that I've read. Now, I think what I'm going to do is going to be a bit pessimistic about that, and if November gets no views, or very few views compared to a video like this, I'll be retiring those videos and just saying, go to my Instagram if you want to see a review of The Mummy from Image Comics, or there's the fourth, or Wicked and the Divine, which I'll be reviewing now, but The Realm, or this series, just because it's just a lot to take out. That's at least 20 books I'm taking out of my personal collection, and they're not all in the same spot on the shelf. So I have to find it, take them all out, and it's 20 books, and then put my little placeholders so that it doesn't collapse on my shelf. Like, when you take books out and they lean up against each other. I hate when that happens, so I put books in there. It's a lot of work to do for a video that's going to get 12 views, because YouTube sucks at, because if you're not Mr. Beast, they won't even tell anyone that isn't subscribed to you but watches your videos that you've uploaded a new video. And honestly, there are YouTubers that I watch regularly that I'm not subscribed to. Like, some of them that do shorts videos, but not every short of theirs I'm interested in. Even then, like, I probably should subscribe to them. But I understand not subscribing to every channel that you watch somewhat regularly. Alright. I just want to put these in some sort of order. So there's really no point in not. So I'll do the indies first. And then we'll go on to the 2 of them. There's just 2 of this time that are Marvel and DC. No, is that first? Alright. First up is the 2nd volume of Red Hood and the Outlaws. And like with Volume 1, I really like this series. And also like with Volume 1, you don't need to read the New 52 series that came before, even though it's written by the same writer, that being Scott Lobdell. And I do like when they do that. However, I'm sure that there are maybe in later volumes they'll have like a returning character. But there really was not a whole lot of fourth or fifth. There wasn't a whole lot of details here that I was confused at. I was like, oh well, you should have read New 52. I still do want to read that New 52 series, but like with New 52, like with this, they don't have the entirety of New 52 in my local library, interloans or otherwise, which yes is very infuriating, and I don't entirely understand why they do that. It's like a little it's like a little tease, like, oh, we could have the rest of the series, and we don't. I know I could just buy it. I know I can just wait for it to be on sale on Kindle. But there's just way too many comics for me to get for me to worry about a series like this that I really do like, but just not on my radar. It's like way far down my radar. And it's not to say that the ones that are on my radar are better. It's just because they're on my radar. And it's just also something like this, I won't feel complete. Like even if I had like the New 52 series and the Rebirth series, I still wouldn't feel complete. That's a lot of why, and I don't get into too much of it, but that's why I've been buying a lot of Image Comics for the last 3 weeks. Sometimes my brain just doesn't work. It just doesn't. Weeks, really? Weeks. Years. Learn to speech better. I got back to speech class. My god, that was awful. Godzilla versus the Marvel Universe. This one was alright. Very much a 3 out of 5 very much just stories that exist, that have Godzilla in them, that are written by competent writers, that are written competently, but they're very forgettable too. I think to say that this is the best thing ever is a bit of an exaggeration. It is cool seeing these characters interact with Godzilla, and for someone that's been collecting comics for for twice the amount of time that I have been, they will be very entertained. And bring back famous writers like Fabian Nicieza and having him write X-Men, I think is really cool. They didn't just get random people off the street to write for Marvel Comics that, yeah, I know these characters enough, but it's really cool seeing these well-known writers get on these books. And what's nice also is that I get a little sample of Ryan North's Fantastic Four. A series I do want to get into. I've heard it's really good despite it being Ryan North of Squirrel Girl fame. And then, what was the other one? Oh, Joe Kelly. I get a little sampling of his Spider-Man. As for my favorite, I guess I would say maybe the X-Men one. They're very forgettable stories. In the sense that you remember, oh yeah, Godzilla and they fight, yeah, and that's really about it. Maybe if I read it a second time. I think I do need to read it a second time for it to really stick, but as it is, it's good, and it's definitely worth checking out, and I give like a 6 out of 10. Oh, and Red Hood and the Outlaws, I think I gave that an 8 out of 10. It's kind of tough to do for a volume 2, because it's the same as I felt about volume 1, and to say, oh, that's an 8 out of 10, but actually I gave it a 7 out of 10, like last video, so I believe it's the same as volume 1 for Red Hood. Juvenile. This was one that I had put into the library to get, because I like doing the novelty. Oh, I own the book, and then something I'll probably stop doing, because it kind of is a pain in the ass, especially now, to go to the library to see that and all that. But thankfully, it was more than just this that had come in at the time. And a lot of it is just I used to do that back in 7th. Back in the day, I would read a book that the library had with some Image Comics, like, oh, I like that so much, I want to buy it myself. That's why I decided to, 3 years ago, when I started to do when I decided to, instead of getting books from multiple publishers and never feeling fully satisfied because there was just so much other shit I could have gotten instead and all that, and I was driving myself insane, I decided, hey, let's go with one publisher. Started with Dark Horse, but then I migrated to Image Comics, really just because that month I just so happened that I was getting Image books, and it was my birthday month. Voice cracked a little bit there, and I was like, hey, why not just get back there too? Hey, let's just get for my birthday all Image books, and I just followed suit from there. And I really haven't looked back, and I really haven't regretted that decision, because there's always going to be comics that I'll never own and I'll never get to read. There's 80 plus years of Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman, 60 plus years of Fantastic Four, 60 plus years of Spider-Man, and even for something as relatively new as Deadpool in comparison to Fantastic Four, that is still 30 plus years of Deadpool. I am never going to be able to read every single comic from Marvel and from DC, and even from Image, even from Boom Studios. So, might as well just say screw it and see what the library has for everything else, and then digital sales. Finally got that, the latter half of Kelly Thompson's run on Jessica Jones. It ends on a super huge cliffhanger, the first part does. And I'll just do that, it's fine, because I know I'm never going to be able to read every single one of, like, the one I think maybe is Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan. That's about it. And Miles Morales, maybe. Now, am I going to give up? No, it's not giving up, it's just deciding, hey, library has enough, let's do that, and then let's get Image books for our personal collection. And of course, if I get something in the mail from someone, and it's Marvel or DC, I'll always say that. I consider that to be satisfying enough, of course. Like the Hercules books I would not have bought, I got from an Instagram follower. And even though I already had it, Brightest Day. Which is nice, though, because I had it on the Kindle, so I have it physically. So that was also good. So it's not like it's completely dissatisfying, like get something that's not complete. It's like, oh yeah, it's all Brightest Day, but that's not all Green Lantern. Like, obviously I don't need to have every single Green Lantern book that ever came out. It's just this feels more satisfying because this is all in one. But anyways, going back to Juvenile, Third, this was pretty damn good. It definitely, voice should be correct there. It's definitely that, got that brand of teenagers, the young adult crowd. Definitely is targeted towards that audience, but it's an interesting story. But it's nothing that is groundbreaking, nothing that is gonna, be the underrated gem or anything like that. It's just a nice way to kill some time in its third, and even to say that sounds like I'm putting it at a disservice. So definitely a serviceable comic. I definitely liked it and definitely do recommend it. But if it was but it's kind of hard to explain. 15th, gotta have the and the ums. But it's passable, but it's above passable, I said. It's above average comic, but it's not anything groundbreaking. I think a 7 out of 10 is it's a perfect 7 out of 10, maybe even 6.5. But even 6.5 sounds too low. So I think to put into perspective, I think that is putting into perspective more than any more words could. So let's move on. Wicked and the Divine will remain one of my top 10 comics of all time, and reading the compendium, that solidified that notion that it will remain my top 10 comics of all time. It is insanely good with so much, even this most recent time I read it, there were several details I picked up on. Now, of course, it's been a long time since last read The Wicked and Divine, but there was still a whole lot of details I completely forgot about, which is insane to think about. So the reread factor is super high with this one, and that's this thick. And keep in mind, this is not all Wicked and Divine. The compendium misses out on 2 issues for no reason, so this is a complete waste of money if you got this. I would say just get the 9 trade paperbacks, or just get this in the 8th trade paperback, because that's the only thing that's missing. It's what's in the 8th trade paperback. It's 2 issues too. This is already, it's a pretty thick book, and it was towards the end I was getting kind of annoyed reading it this way. Only kind of, it'd be worth it if they included all of the Wicked and Divine. It does collect the entire series, so you're not missing any story really. It's just the Christmas annual, which I did like, and the funnies, which I really hated. Honestly, that's the weakest issue of the Wicked and Divine by far. And even obviously it's not gonna amount to the ongoing series itself, because it's just a one shot. But even in comparison to storytelling, it really isn't that great. If it was, I'm trying to say, I'm not comparing it to Wicked and Divine, that's not an unfair comparison, but comparing it by itself, that's just words looking for, storytelling. Comparing it by itself, it still is a pretty piss poor comic that I kind of hated. But this still gets a 9.5, actually 10 out of 10. Sorry, all my top 10s are 10 out of 10. It still gives a 10 out of 10 regardless. Definitely worth checking out. Underground, so this is my personal copy. I read the Oni press printing first. I have this both the 17th. I do own it because of my OCD. I wanted to own the Image Comics printing, but when I bought it, I was like, oops, this is Oni press printing. It's for whatever reason, Jeff Parker decided to put it under Oni press. No real reason. Then I bought later, I think it was a few months later, I bought the Image Comics printing. But to get the most mileage, I decided to read the Oni press printing first. And thankfully, this is just good enough to where I will definitely have no problem reading the Image Comics printing later on. Hell, maybe even within the next 2 months. Something like Juvenile is very straightforward, and it's very not too dialogue heavy. So the reread factor, that's going to be maybe 4 to 6 months later. Whereas this, because there's a lot of dialogue in here, and some things I feel like I missed, I would want to read this in the next 2 months. And that's just good. Not just, because sometimes I'll feel like I missed something, but with Weatherman by Jody LeCupe, I feel like I missed a whole lot of details in my second reading. And that's kind of in the middle where it's a lot of dialogue and I do want to read it again. Something like, I guess Tartarus, even though I only read the first issue. That first issue, I feel like I missed a lot, but it's not really a series I want to go back to reading, but it's a lot of dialogue, a lot of stuff I feel like I missed. Far Sector was that too. sometimes I'll reread something out of obligation, flipping obligation. Far Sector started out being that, and there's just a whole lot of details, whole lot of lore, and I felt like giving a review on it, it wasn't complete. So I decided to reread it just so the review that I made on it felt more complete. So that feels like that's when it feels like it's out of obligation. But something like Underground, I reread because I like the story, and I feel there's a lot of details that I missed. Because again, a lot of dialogue in this book, a lot of speech bubbles, a lot of text. So saying that, it's a lot of jargon, but basically what that all sums up to is TLDR is that this series is definitely one I'll read again very soon. Recommended 7.5 out of 10. It definitely has that in some instances throughout where it's like, why was this made into a graphic novel? Like, what's the hook? And then the hook came a little bit later than I expected, but it is still good. Earth Divers, the last 2 volumes. Definitely an improvement over Volume 1. Definitely one I will read again very soon. Again, like Underground, doubly so. As like Underground in comparison is the most straightforward comic compared to Earth Divers. There's so much they throw at the wall. All of it does stick. I will give it that. But it's like 30... Nah, I'm going that far. It's like 22 issues of story crammed into 16 and then 1 epilogue issues worth of story. And it works. I didn't feel like it was going too off the wall or too fast paced or like throwing too much at the wall, which I think that's a great way of saying that this book is really damn good and well worth checking out. 8 out of 10. But it's just, it definitely felt at times like it did kind of jump from point A to point C. But it wasn't to a point where I was at all aggravated. I was just like, yeah, that's how the entire series has been. So, there's no real surprise there. I don't mean that as an insult either, of course. Concrete Park was just odd. This is a good indication of what I was just saying about Earth Divers, where it would jump from point A to point C, and I wouldn't mind. This would jump from point A to point D, then go back to point A, then go back to point D. It was all over the place, a complete mess. It was just mildly entertaining. Thank God it was 64 pages and also 17th. Also, it was only 64 pages. Pretty fast-paced, so if it hadn't been any longer, I probably would have given it a lower score than just a 6 out of 10. It's passable. It's good enough. It definitely entertained. Then, The Sickness. Very mixed feelings about this because there's 2 stories in here. The schizophrenia storyline, I have to say what it is because those of you who have read it will know what I'm talking about. And then the main storyline of the investigation into other, I think it was that too, and then other similar cases. That part I thought was very slow-paced and not really all that interesting, and the main lead was written very boring. And then Fawcett was kind of a tedious read. But the stuff with the schizophrenia, that was really damn good. And it really felt like it was going for the aesthetic that it was going for. And it achieved that, too. It's going for that. And I haven't read any EC comics, but I know the feel. I know the tone. I know the overall, hook of these EC comics. Now, it feels like a more modern day version of those EC comics. I know the EC comics would get really strange, and this is more straightforward in the sense that it doesn't want to go too crazy and too over the top. It wants to be more realistic, and I really appreciated that. Now, I could be talking on my ass when I'm talking about that because I think maybe the EC comics are more straightforward nowadays. It's going to be a modern day take on the EC comics. I don't know. But all I know is that I know I've watched Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, the first ever story they did, the Haunted House one, was a take on the EC comics. I think that whole entire episode was just a parody of the EC comics. So I know that feel. I know there have been plenty of... And I've seen, I've flipped through... I've watched videos that are covering them, and I've seen, panels. So I know that kind of feel for the EC comics. So you like EC Comics, you want something more modern, definitely check out The Sickness. And that is that.